You know, when most people think about the Vietnam War, their minds usually jump straight to the 1960s. But that's not really where the story starts. Nope. The real roots of that conflict go all the way back to the end of World War II. We're going to dive into how this massive, global Cold War of all things ended up planting the seeds for what happened in Southeast Asia. So to really get what happened in Vietnam, we've got to start in Europe, oddly enough, with this idea of the Iron Curtain. Now, it wasn't a real physical thing. It was this powerful symbol of a world that had just split right down the middle. This invisible line became the new chessboard for pretty much all of global politics. And the division was just so black and white. You were either with the West, non-communist, capitalist, or you were with the East, the communist bloc. That's it. There was basically no room for gray area. And this way of seeing the world, this you're either with us or against us mindset, was going to have huge consequences for countries just trying to carve out their own path. Right, so that's the first big piece of the puzzle, a world divided. This whole East versus West thing is the backdrop for everything that's about to happen. It's the lens through which every major decision was made for decades. Okay, so with that global stage set, let's zoom way, way in, all the way to Vietnam. Because while the world's superpowers were drawing these huge lines in the sand, the Vietnamese people were already neck deep in a fight of their own, a fight for independence they'd been waging for a long, long time. Yeah, this is so important to get. Their struggle wasn't some new thing that popped up because of the Cold War. The Vietnamese people had been trying to kick out the French colonial rulers since way before World War II ever started. Their goal was pretty simple. They wanted freedom. They wanted to run their own country. And just look at this timeline. It's pretty wild. It shows this constant state of struggle. Before the big war, they're fighting the French. During the war, Japan occupies their country. And then the Second World War II ends. What happens? France tries to waltz right back in and take over again. The fight for freedom never, ever stopped for them. Only the enemy kept changing. So right after the war, with Japan gone and France not quite back in control, there's this power vacuum, a brief moment, a window of opportunity. And it leads to this direct and honestly really surprising plea that could have changed history completely. The leader of this Vietnamese independence movement was a man named Ho Chi Minh. And seeing his chance, he did something nobody really expected. He didn't turn to the Soviets. He didn't turn to China. He reached out directly to the United States. You know, the country that had just led a war all about freedom and democracy. And get this, think about the sheer guts of this move. He didn't just write a letter asking for help. He shows up with a draft of a new constitution for an independent Vietnam, and it's modeled directly on the U.S. Constitution. He was literally using America's own words, its own ideals of liberty, to try and win its support. Well, as you can imagine, this put the United States in a really tough spot. It forced them to make a deeply ironic choice. A single decision that would end up echoing for decades to come. So, put yourself in their shoes for a second. What do you do? On one side, you've got this independence movement literally using your own founding principles as their blueprint. But on the other side, you have your old ally, France, a super important partner in stopping communism from spreading in Europe, and they want their colony back. Who do you pick? They chose France. In that great big global chess match of the Cold War, keeping an old European ally strong against the Soviets was just seen as more important than backing a brand new independence movement in Asia, even if that movement was echoing American ideals. And the fallout from that choice? It happened fast. By 1950, the very first U.S. military advisors were on the ground in Vietnam. Just 4 years later, after the French are finally defeated, the country is officially split in half. You get a communist North and a non-communist South. And right there, that's the setup for a civil war that would eventually become America's war. So a choice was made. A single decision, seen through that black and white lens of the Cold War, set everything in motion. A plea for help, based on shared ideals of freedom, was turned down. And in that one moment, in that one rejection, you have to ask yourself, what seeds of conflict had just been sown?